Hey, it's Johnny Flynn, and we had a court date today with Secretary of State Kohler, a no-show. And if I could just show you the document. See how this says arguable motion? Let me see. Arguable motion. That's an arguable motion, and this is an arguable motion. Now, this bottom motion is a habeas corpus, which means that it has to be a in-person. We're asking for the arrest of the Secretary of State. So they canceled it at the last minute for the third time. So with me is Joyce the Voice. I hope y'all know her. And Elizabeth Greenwood, two ardent pro-constitutionalists.
That's it. That's how you explain.
That's it. Here, why don't you take this so you can see this? Want me to sit? I'll sit next to Elizabeth.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So if you have a few questions, I can answer whatever you think
I have.
you're hoping to get
questions.
to the bottom of. It's a complicated case.
Yes, it is a complicated case. So I have been discussing with so many people about your being on the ballot and not being on the ballot.
Right.
And
And there's an enormous amount of corruption here,
and
folks.
how everybody in the state, all the elected officials say, oh, you did not have the qualifications to get on the ballot because you had dead people on your
Correct.
ballots.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
That's what Ken Dixon said.
And does anybody validate that?
No, they can't tell me the names.
Have you FOIA requested
I
officially,
FOIA
formally
requested
on
everything
paper?
in August.
And they do not send that to you.
They
Now,
had 6 days to respond.
how is it possible now that they can say that in the method of how you acquired those signatures? What did you have? Did you know those people's names? Like what was the
Well,
method?
let me tell you the process.
First tell us what the executive order was,
Sure. 7WW.
and explain what that is.
Okay, so Lamont in COVID, when COVID hit, he made certain restrictions. So knowing that petitioning candidates intended on knocking on doors, shaking hands, going to large events with a lot of people, they wanted to put the kibosh on that, which is understandable because you can't protect the public from that type of virus when it was really starting to take off. So what he decided was that electronic signature would be allowed. And he relaxed many of the petitioning candidate guidelines. For example, I was required to get 7,500 signatures, okay, by the 1% rule. However, due to 7WW, 30% of that number was reduced. So let's just assume I needed 5,000 because of the 7WW COVID restriction rule.
Okay.
Now, the guy who wrote it is Kohler, the acting Secretary of State. So Denise Merrill resigned abruptly on June 31st. Kohler steps in. Kohler has a conflict of interest with the U.S. Senate race because he worked for Blumenthal for 12 years as Assistant Attorney General under Attorney General Blumenthal. So obviously, him writing the COVID rule, them not enforcing it, and him not accepting the signatures written by the law that he created is a problem. When you look at the facts here,
So
Bromley...
this was a loophole that was created by Blumenthal, and it was to...
No, it was Kohler.
It was
Created by
written
Kohler.
Kohler, but it was signed off by Blumenthal, because it's an executive order, you said.
No, it was Lamont's executive order.
Right.
Lamont, not
Right.
Blumenthal.
Oh, so- oh, yeah,
Lamont
right. I'm sorry, I meant
passed
Lamont.
laws
Yes,
due to
that's what I
COVID.
meant. Yes.
Like, for example, whatever the vaccination laws are for children, that's changed, and there's good reason to, doubt that law because young children have an active immune system already.
Okay, so on the subject of back to Lamont signing the EO, that was a loophole, so
Right.
you can have greater
Right.
access to gaining signatures for
So let me tell you the process.
becoming a candidate.
Correct.
To make the qualifications.
Correct.
Now, the process.
I bought.
You bought.
Right.
Spent.
I spent $2,800
On how many
I bought about 400,000 emails.
emails with names attached, addresses?
No names. Just the email
Just
of
an email.
independent and undecided voters.
No Democrats.
No Democrats.
No Republicans.
No Republicans. No.
Okay.
Why? Because that was the targeted area I wanted to.
That's where you want to spend your money, of
Correct.
course.
Correct. Because
So
I mean,
you
a
sent out-
Republican might just vote for a Republican.
I understand.
And a Democrat may never vote for a Republican.
Right.
But the fact is, the people on the fence
There's a
are
lot
the
more
most
independents
important.
than anything.
Yes, it's the largest
Okay.
party.
So the point is then, so you send out these mass email
Right. I sent
ads,
$1.5 million.
or and then what was your request on these emails? What was your
I said,
introduction?
are you aware there's an independent candidate running for U.S. Senate? My name is. This is what I stand for. This is where I'm at. I said I had 2 boys. One's in college. One's out of college.
So you gave a bio about
I said
yourself.
I was Catholic. I gave them my endorsements. Who endorsed me?
So it was a bio,
Right.
basically.
I gave my bio.
And then what did you request of them?
And I gave them my website. I told them where to find me on Twitter. I told them where to find me on YouTube. And I've had a lot of people.
And how did they get the signature? What kind of format was the signature given?
Well, I asked questions. I said, if you need to learn more, if you want to learn more about me, tell me your name. Tell me your address. Tell me your occupation. All the things how you qualify a petitioning candidate. I say, oh, tell me your birth date.
Okay.
So what happens is I was getting answers in dribs and drabs. Those people went into a file where I re-emailed them. So some people responded 5-6 times to give
Okay.
me all the information. And I
Okay.
sent them to my website. I set up 2 specific websites for collecting signatures,
Okay.
and we got them from both.
Okay.
So-
And you had somebody helping you do this because that's a
Yeah.
lot of work. For how
Yeah.
many? How many did you need?
I needed only 5,000.
Only 5,000.
So
okay.
I did get 57,962 signatures.
Okay. So even if some of them were
Right, now here we go. When you read the 7WW law, okay,
okay.
it's relaxed. Electronic signature is allowed.
Okay.
The state of Connecticut has never admitted that.
Okay.
And I've recorded 6 conversations about it. In other words, you can question Taffy Womack all you want. She will not admit she's ever read the executive order of Lamont dealing with petitioning candidates. So, what they did was they violated executive orders of the governor, to keep candidates off the ballot. They kept more than 12 candidates off the ballot using
Now
this
there was
process.
only. Now you explained there was only one other candidate who used the same loophole that you
Correct.
did. The other 10 had gone out and collected.
Only one I did it with. I did it with him. We did it together.
So was there? So you shared the email.
I put his profile on my websites to collect signatures for him.
For both of you.
Yes.
So did he help pay for these?
No, I did it as a favor
Okay.
because he's a marketing guy.
Okay.
And he was marketing. I was doing the actual
Okay.
collection.
So what about the other 10 people? They went out and collected signatures and they got them all.
Those 11 other people, one, for example, ran for governor, Aaron Lewis, got 9,500 signatures. He also only needed 5,000.
And he should have been on the ballot.
Correct.
And he was not.
He got a letter saying he was not on the ballot due to COVID.
And now what does due to COVID mean?
It means they were short-staffed, they couldn't verify the signatures.
So they didn't have enough staff to validate
Correct.
the signatures.
What's important here to note is Connecticut is a non-validation state. Arizona, which just had that Carrie Lake problem, they verify every signature. Connecticut doesn't have a signature to compare it to.
My issue with signatures is who's the expert in comparing signatures. I've had the occasion of going to a bank and then they say, well, that's not your signature, but it was my signature. It was just a different signature.
Well, what's interesting is that in
So
Connecticut,
it takes an expert to do signature.
not necessarily,
No.
because the law in Connecticut and federally states that if I write an X, that's my signature today.
It could be.
Right, tomorrow I
You
could
could
do
have
a
had a
straight
stroke
line.
and you can't write.
Tomorrow I can do a straight line. The next day I can do a 1-hump camel. The following
Right.
day I can do a 2-hump camel.
Right.
In Connecticut, you can change your
What about
signature
a
every
voter
time
ID
you
card,
sign.
like a photograph?
Well, you're not required in a petitioning ballot
Well, they don't have that in
to
in
provide that.
Connecticut.
Right. They don't even
They don't have anything
offer it.
like that.
They don't offer it.
Right.
So
they
what
don't even
happened-
want, they don't even need a photo ID in Connecticut.
No, they don't. The
So-
law is written, for example, when I asked these voters if I had their written authority to sign their name, many of them said yes.
Okay.
Why not? I said, here's my website, sign. How do you move? So in other words, if the state of Connecticut changed the law to allow electronic signature, why didn't they change the form?
Okay.
It's a no-brainer.
So what happened? So when you get the packet for all of this, and you know the rules
Yep,
for getting onto the ballot,
Yep.
okay, for running as a candidate.
yep.
So
I ran into the
When
people who rejected the
they
signatures.
told you your signatures were rejected. Now, every candidate is required to sign a form. You have to be approved
This is the deal.
to be
When
a
you
sign-in.
hand them the signatures, you don't get a receipt. There is no chain of custody,
No.
period.
Chain of custody is where I have a great issue of opening the window of time for voting.
Yes.
Pre-election and
Separating
counting.
the forms
Yeah.
and not being able to marry them back together is a problem.
Well, yes.
Because when I went to the secretary's office, I brought 57,000 signatures on August 3rd. They rejected them all, every single one. My father, my son, even my own, even Elizabeth here.
Yes.
So Elizabeth collected 28 signatures as a favor, as a friend. We have dinner on Sundays. The fact remains, a blind person is allowed to get assistance to fill out the form. It's in the law.
What about a
handicapped
demented person?
Yeah, they can
Person
have
who
Yes.
cannot cognitively, they don't have laws for
if
that.
they're not committed.
I saw a Democrat drag in a person with dementia and hold their hand through the whole thing, even
Yeah.
to fill
See,
in the circles.
My dad has memory loss, but he's 99% most of the time, and then he'll have an issue where he
Right.
forgets
This
something.
person would not have passed in any mental
Right,
state
right, right.
without
Right.
great laws.
Keep in mind,
Yeah.
people. Elizabeth took me to a baseball game in Hartford where there was thousands of handicapped people, and we signed many,
Yeah.
many people.
Yeah.
None of those ballots were approved. Zero.
And how is that?
How is that possible?
How come?
Well, if you look at what I gave the state, for example, there's 13 towns in the letter M. Madison, Milford, Marlborough, Middlebury, Moosup, 13 towns in the letter M. There's not one approved signature in the entire letter M. Now, I have hundreds of signatures from Milford because I
So-
went to the beach.
If you sign the paper
Mm-hmm.
and one signature on the paper is not valid, then they invalidate the whole paper
In certain cases.
in certain cases.
But what the state's claiming, if I can show you forms that we have in the car, no signatures were approved from Stamford. I have hundreds of signatures from Cove Beach and Chapin Point
Okay.
in Stamford. What did they do?
What did they do?
I have an average of 11 people per sheet.
Okay.
None of the signatures counted.
Why
None.
is that?
Now here we go.
You don't know.
My friend Jill Romer lives in Stamford.
So did they give you a detailed explanation on each of your?
They're supposed to, and they did.
So why didn't they give you the same reason then that because of COVID they couldn't review all of your signatures?
That's a lie. When I went to the Secretary of State's office, there were 10 people there standing around. Then they called 6 security guards, state troopers, and other cops to observe me giving my signatures to them.
So
So, I mean, it was 20 on 1.
do you know the other candidates, are they going after the
Aaron Lewis
elections?
did
Aaron
sue.
Lewis, yeah.
Actually, Harry Aurora lodged a
Because
complaint and a lawsuit.
this is rampant and this has to be
So hold on.
addressed.
Not only did they block the candidates that got the signatures, they added other candidates that never collected signatures.
Did they?
Yes, they did.
I didn't see anything like that on the ballot
Exactly.
that
Do you
I
know who the
see.
third person who
No.
was on the ballot for the Blumenthal race is?
No.
Well, I think he's from West Haven. I never heard his name before. There was 3 candidates.
I don't remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
just
and-
remember who I was voting for. And
Well,
that's
here you
it.
go. I mean, they blocked us from the absentee ballot, which is illegal. It's each one of those signatures is a felony. I'm talking about 200,000 felonies. 200,000 felonies is a lot.
No.
So when I asked Ted Bromley direct questions. Oh no, I have no role in this. I said,
So-
here's your letterhead. You're director
He's
of
the
elections for the state of Connecticut.
Right. So he's being very, very fishy.
He allowed Democrats, listen to my words, to send pre-filled out absentee ballots to many different towns, East Hartford, Stamford, Granby. There's a whole bunch. Winchester, I think. I have a list in the car. I have all his documents and his discussions with Ken Dixon, so they would smear candidates.
So I'm aware of, I don't want to talk about details because I do understand it's under investigation.
Yep.
And I will not say any names, and I won't say exactly what happened, except that this my friend who gave me firsthand experience of hers was a moderator and told me that the ballots that were supposed to be in the enclosed container that they unpack everything early in that morning, machines and everything. they didn't-
Unused ballots.
Yes,
Yes,
because
so-
they were going to be used for the day, for the machines.
Right.
A third of the stock was missing.
So someone else could use that.
And this is in Fairfield, and the actual ballots that she called and said they're short. The voter registration office was like
Right.
not very pleasant.
So here's the thing.
And the thing is, this is it. The moderators, trying to be transparent and
Yep.
write a log, a diary of every little thing that happens that day. Numerous moderators that day, at least a handful, their diaries are gone, missing, disappeared.
Missing. The comments are gone.
So were the ballots.
And so are the ballots.
The ones that were
Right.
missing, they replaced them with a few ballots. They said we're going to send this much, they didn't, and then they sent the rest photocopied, which don't make it through the machine because they're not heavier stock.
Right.
So they have to be hand cast. So where did those other blank ballots go?
I don't know, but
Right.
there's a lot of
so
issues
this is the
here.
shenanigans. It's internal. So never mind the ballot stuffing. What's going on internally with the local? It's all infiltrated with people who are willing to
Keep
cheat,
in mind,
who are
I
willing
filled
to
out the-
lie, who are
right.
willing,
Right.
and this is and then you got judges and courts and clerks. I mean, I've had the clerk when I was.
Here we go. Judge Clark, right here.
I was a problem litigant myself, and they separated my affidavits from my motions. And I had to, that was a big thing. They wanted to stamp my motions on the back when I put them in at the clerk's office. I said, no, on the front, because I want the title of the document. I don't want it on a blank page where you're stamping it.
So here we go.
They
Let me
play
ask you a question.
They play all games like this. They play all these
Let me
little
ask you a
games.
question. If you're a voter and you file a lawsuit against the Secretary of State, okay,
Okay.
for voter fraud,
Okay.
and you can prove it, I
Right.
believe I can prove it,
Right.
why is the judge saying there'll be no discovery?
Right.
Hold on. That Judge Clark, should be saying, produce all the discovery that I require. Why? Because I also filed a FOIA. Now, when you get right down to the nitty
You
gritty,
can't, but they won't give you the FOIA information, so you don't have discovery.
now here we go.
Well, you do. You have witnesses.
Here we go.
You have people who say they did sign.
Why would you? I filed an injunction to stop an illegal election.
Okay.
The rules of the judges were so bad, I had to appeal the decisions. So now we're in the appellate court. The
Well,
appellate court
you can't
takes
appeal.
a year.
You can't appeal on a bad decision. You can appeal on jurisprudence, poor jurisprudence, like
I can
bias.
If I can prove through my documents and 12 videos I gave them, I asked for judicial notice on 12
So you
videos.
gave the court videos not as evidence, but
crimes.
as an affidavit or
crimes.
crimes.
I'm saying notice
So-
to the court. This guy is a criminal. This is what he said.
Okay, so you can get him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we go.
So you want a
Ted
grand
Bromley
jury and you want him
denies
out.
calling Ken Dixon. Ken Dixon sent me their emails between the state and him saying all these things that are false. So when it comes right down to voter integrity, and a lot of people are losing their confidence.
So have you contacted anybody on the national level about this? Like, how do you...
Everybody I could possibly find.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, I think this is we have a situation with 51 Democratic senators and 49 Republicans. And Blumenthal's seat is, the way he obtained it is so corrupt. After all, 50,000 signatures are missing. 50,000 out of 57,000. If I was required 5,000, they wouldn't have made 50,000 disappear. I'm saying I collected 11 times the amount I needed to get on the ballot. I expected to be on the ballot. I filled out the paperwork to be a write-in. Other write-ins are there, not me. And Shelton, for example, had an issue of whether or not I was a write-in. They were coached to tell people I was not a write-in. Excuse me. I
I
filled out
thought you
the
could
paperwork.
write in, I thought as a voter, this is my own ignorance, now I'm not originally
Yeah.
from Connecticut, but I thought you could write whatever you want as a write-in.
Nope. Has to be
I mean,
registered.
Years ago,
All you have to do is
I wrote
fill out
in
a form.
for a presidential election that I hated. I wrote SpongeBob
Nice.
because he likes his job and he's
there were
good at
votes
it.
for Mickey Mouse in Shelton, I had heard.
Yeah,
Only because they wouldn't accept my name. They accepted Mickey Mouse, though.
yeah, right.
It's not my
Right?
name. So I thank you for your appearance.
So I am all for. I'm for the Constitution. I'm all for truth and transparency, and I hate when it's not being transparent. I hate that you cannot get the information from your FOIA requests.
Yeah.
I hate that you got bamboozled all the way, and I hate that they're court blocking you today.
Yeah, court block.
I would say something more rude and crude, but I wouldn't.
Please
but
don't.
it's
Let's get
court
Elizabeth's
blocking.
2 seconds. What
So-
do you think, Elizabeth? As far as an ADA right to put a candidate on the ballot, a signature, a voting right, blocked, knowing that all your efforts, you have a right to vote for who you want, to put a candidate on the ballot. What do you think?
I think it's horrific.
Is Connecticut screwing the disabled? To a large extent?
To a large extent, there's rules and regulations that are not being compliant.
Well, if all these undocumented people get benefits and they're cutting back on insulin, for example, right? Insulin's expensive. They ration